In this video, we're going to show you how to install parking brakes on your Hummer H3 located behind your rear rotors. With the vehicle raised and supported, I'm going to go ahead and rotate the wheel. I want to remove our center cap. So I'm going to use a screwdriver, you can use a trim tool, and you're going to go right behind here and just gently pry out, removing the center cap. Next, using a 19mm socket, I want to go ahead and loosen and remove your lug nuts. Go ahead and grab that wheel, remove it, and set it aside. With the rear wheel removed, we want to go ahead and remove our brake caliper here. I'm going to use a 14mm socket on our impact gun. You can use a regular ratchet or wrench if you want. On the bottom one, we can't fit our impact gun, so we're simply going to use our ratchet. Now we did spray this down with some rust penetrant. Next thing I want to do is go ahead and remove our caliper. I'm going to swing that off. Now you want to be careful with this here. You don't want to let this hang on our flex hose. So what we're going to do is simply pivot this up and set it on top of the bump stop pad on our axle. Over here, I'm going to go ahead and remove our brake pads. If you have to, you can go ahead and use your screwdriver to go ahead and pry these out. Go ahead and set those aside. We now want to remove our caliper bracket from the axle itself. There's two 15mm bolts. You can use a breaker bar. Sometimes you can use your ratchet. Gonna go ahead and break these loose. Now there's no real specific order in removing these bolts. However, if you remove the bottom one first, you can go ahead and release it without it falling. And you come back and grab that top one. If you undo the top one, you can risk this swinging around. Not a big issue. Go ahead and remove that bolt. Grab that bracket and set that aside. Now I want to go ahead and remove our brake rotor. Now there are parking brake shoes underneath the rotor hat itself. So we're going to go ahead and just tap that. And we want to go ahead and tap it and rotate if you can. Sometimes you can grab that rotor and wiggle it off. Our parking brake shoes are adjusted properly where they just barely catch. Now if your rotor is stuck, we want to go ahead and show you how to remove the rotor without causing any further damage. Now if you notice on the front side of your rotor, you have two threaded holes here. You're going to grab the appropriate size bolt size. I want to go ahead and get these started. And you're going to use these bolts as pushers. You can use your ratchet on this here if you want. But I'm going to gently tighten these both down. And look what's happening. I'm going to go ahead and use a rubber mallet on the rotor. There we go. Go ahead and remove that. Don't forget to remove your trusty bolts here. Now before we dig into removing the parking brake shoes, I'm going to go ahead and use a spray solvent. I'm going to clean everything, get all that brake dust out, flushed out, so it makes it a little bit safer and cleaner for us to work. Now we want to go ahead and remove our parking brake shoes. Now there's 2 pins that run through the back of the backing plate, and they come out, and right about 3 o'clock there is a little hat with a spring behind it. Now what I'm going to use is our bent 18 mil socket, a box wrench. I'm going to reach around the back, I'm going to hold the head of the pin, and the reason why I'm using this is, well, you can get behind here. Now I want to go ahead and use an 18 mil wrench here. You want to put in, now it's not reaching that cap yet. We can see that our backing plate and our shoe have shifted a little bit when we removed our rotor. I'm just going to use a flathead screwdriver, and you get some movement out of this here. Now we can get that on there. Now the hat or cap itself has a cross hatch in it, and the pin comes through and it has a blade on it, and one side it locks on, the other side is open. So what we need to do is hold that pin on the back side, put this on here, push it in, and rotate. Once that is lined up, that spring and cap will be loose, and the pin in the back needs to come out. I'm going to use a magnet on the back side. And there it is. Here's the pin, and it has a little blade on it. Now you want to inspect these here, make sure that they're solid and not all corroded. Ours are solid. They will need to be cleaned. If they're rusty, you need to replace them. You can get a kit for this here to replace these springs and all that stuff. And here is the spring and cap. We're going to be reusing these. Now there's one on the forward side, roughly between 9 and 10 o'clock. Going to do the same over there. Now you can see it's pretty flimsy here, but it's still holding its shape. There is a spring on the top that connects the rear shoe to the front, and then the bottom, the same thing. There's another spring on the bottom, but there's also what we call an adjuster wheel. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove our adjuster wheel and spring from the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that next. Now on the bottom here is the adjuster wheel, and what this does is it expands or contracts, and the adjuster is threaded. So if you turn it one way, it's going to expand, or if you go the other way, it's going to contract. We're going to spin this wheel down. It's going to make the adjuster smaller. It's going to make it easier for us to disassemble. And then upon installation, you always want to start with it in the fully compressed position anyways, and then we're going to expand it to adjust where the brake shoes come out to touch the inside of the rotor. Now you don't have to do this. You can normally just rip these apart and pull that out, but it's got to get done anyways, and it makes it easier for us to do our job. I'm just working this off the brake shoe itself, and it's a bit rusted on there. Now we're going to be reusing this, so let's go ahead and work this off. Our spring popped off, so that's fine. There it is. There it is. That's most of it. The other piece had popped off. We'll show you that in a minute. But it has the little slot in it that fits onto the parking brake shoe. And then the other side, it literally just rests inside of it. It's not threaded, it just fits in there. This side here is threaded, and we'll be servicing this before we install it. And while we're here, go ahead and pop out that spring. Now the spring is dead in the center, and then it has the even hooks on the end, so it doesn't matter which way it goes in. It just hooks on the front side, not from the back. Now the spring itself is a bit beefier than the one on the bottom. So what I have here, this is a simple screwdriver with a notch in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I can reach in normally and put it on the spring itself and push that off. I'm going to remove that front and then the rear. And here's the spring right here. And that connects to the upper hole over here. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and focus on our backing plate and our parking brake mechanical components here. We want to clean all of this here, lubricate all of this, and then start our reassembly. Now we're going to use a bristle brush here. You want to clean your backing plate around here. Inspect for any holes. If this is falling apart, you really want to consider replacing it at that point. Ours is pretty solid. It does look a little rusty, but there's no holes in it. It's just a little bit scaly rust. Don't forget to clean on the back side here. This is very important to clean all of this. It's good to be working in a ventilated area as well, because you'll have residual brake dust and stuff that you don't want to be breathing in. Once you're satisfied with descaling everything, go ahead and spray it down with some solvent. Clean it all. And on the top here, underneath this fixed bracket, is going to be your parking brake actuator unit there that is controlled by the cable. I'm going to go ahead and use some rust penetrant to go ahead and pretty much soak this. If these aren't used for a long time, they will freeze. And then if for some reason they go to get actuated, then they stick closed, and then you're calling a tow truck because you won't be able to move that vehicle. So go ahead and soak everything down. And then we're going to move on to our adjuster here. Now on one side of the adjuster is just a cap, just pops on there. This side here is threaded. Now this is part of adjusting your parking brake shoes, expand and adjust properly. So go ahead and unthread that. You can use a bristle brush. Clean this here. Clean the threads. Now if you can't spin that out, go ahead and put it into a vise and go ahead and rotate that. If this is frozen or seized, this comes as a kit. You can normally purchase all of your brake springs and hardware kit for your parking brake shoes separately. For something like this, I'm going to use a little bit of anti-seize compound. Put some on the threads here and thread this in. You should be able to thread that in pretty much all the way. This side here, I'm just going to put a little bit of silicone paste. That's it, just a tiny little dab. And our adjuster is rebuilt. Now before we assemble everything, you want to pay attention to your parking brake setup here. You want to make sure that the unit itself pivots. And if not, you want to go ahead and loosen that up by putting some rust penetrant on it and getting that free. Next step we want to do is pay attention to the contact pads. Now, backing plates have 6 contact pads, 3 per shoe. So we're going to put some silicone paste on these 3. Now, you don't want globs on here. We're going to put some on here, and then we're going to come back and we're going to smear it on there nice and thin. We just want a thin coating. Okay. Now we're going to be handling the brake shoes. You want to make sure that if you're wearing gloves that they are super clean. If you're barehanded, make sure that your hands are clean, because we don't want to get anything on those brake shoes or the parking brake shoes. Okay. Now installing these here, they are specific. There's a large open notch on the bottom, and on the top has a couple different notches in it. You want to go ahead and grab the parking brake shoe that matches it, just mirrors it. And we're going to start by getting our spring here. So we're going to take our shoe, put the spring on, slide it under. I'm using my screwdriver with the notch in it. I'm going to feed this up and through. I'm going to take my adjuster and just put it on the 2 notches on the bottom side. We're basically just reversing our removal now. Make sure that the threaded portion goes on the back parking brake shoe. We're going to take our spring, and that simply goes on the 2 holes on either side of the adjuster. Next thing is, we're going to take one of our pins, which we clean in our wire wheel machine. You can use your bristle brush. We're going to feed it through the backing plate. Then we're going to put our spring with the cap on it. Now that needs to come through the center. And we need to compress that spring and rotate it, and then release it so it locks on. This can get tricky, can be a little frustrating. When installing these here, use whatever tool you can to get that to go. You experiment with your pliers. You can do the wrench trick like I was just doing. There we go. We got that one twisted on. I'm going to go ahead and line up our brake pad here, our parking brake pad or shoe. Now that we have this side installed, we're going to repeat that process for the other side. Okay, just get the other side installed. And push the parking brake shoes in line here. Now you want to make sure that the upper portion of your parking brake shoes, the arch is in line with this upper portion right here. Checking our adjuster, you're checking the gap between the parking brake shoe and the parking brake area here. And there is a little bit of play. You can see that this is supposed to be like this. But when we go to put our rotor on, you might have to kind of bump this left and right to get that to line up just right. And then we're going to go ahead and proceed with our adjusting. Let's go ahead and use our bristle brush, and we want to make sure we clean this hub face. I want to make sure if you have any rust on those edges here, that is all cleaned before that rotor goes on. Now, if the rotor doesn't sit flush, it's going to cause a wobbling or pulsating when you're stepping on the brakes. Clean that up. We're going to use some anti-seize compound on the hub face. I'm going to protect my components in the back. You can use a brush on if you want. Now, viewing this from the bottom side here, we can see our adjuster wheel right here. Now, normally when we put our brake rotor on, we're going to do a little wiggle test and make sure if it has excessive wiggle, we're going to go ahead and pull it off. We're going to adjust this wheel. And we're going to go ahead and push it in an upward position to cause the parking brake shoes to expand. We basically want these parking brake shoes just to barely be catching the inside of our brake rotor hat. So you're going to put it on and wiggle, and you want it to slide on, but still be able to pull it off. Now, if you want to do this from outside the vehicle, right here on the very back here, it has a rubber plug. So we can push this out, and there's the rubber plug there. And normally, you can go ahead and put a screwdriver in here and push it from the backside. Boom. Just like that. It's usually a lot quicker to do it this way here to adjust. Now I'm going to go ahead and push this back the other way to compress this. With that rubber plug out, I'm going to go ahead and grab my brake rotor. We're going to do a test fit. All right. And this is where we're going to grab side to side, and we can see it goes on real easy and there's a lot of play. So you can see as it's flush, it wobbles around quite a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our screwdriver in that back hole on that backing plate, and we're going to go ahead and adjust this accordingly. We still have some play. Actually, that is pretty perfect right there. You can see we're moving. It has very minimal amount of play, and our brake rotor spins freely. So we're adjusted perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and pop this plug back in. And take your brake caliper bracket, line that up. Just get that bolt run in. Do the same for the bottom. Always start these bolts by hand. You never want to cross thread these here. Gonna run these bolts down. We'll snug them up. On the inboard pad, don't forget to install it with the squeak tab on the bottom side. The notches are going to line up with the sliders that you had installed earlier. Good, line those up and slide them in. Going to do the same on the outer. I'm going to grab our piston here. Now you need to go ahead and compress this piston back in. Now you can use an old pad and a C-clamp and go ahead and press that in. We're simply going to use our compressor tool here and do that slowly. You're basically pushing fluid back up into the line and up into the master. But you do want to make sure that that piston is flush on that unit. Make sure it's flush. Inspect that rubber boot and make sure that rubber boot is in good condition. Slide it over your brake pads. Push your sliders in. And I'm going to go ahead and get this upper bolt started. Once it's started a few threads, you go ahead and let it go. And then get that lower one installed. You're going to torque your caliper to the bracket. These two little bolts are 27 foot-pounds. Torque down your caliper bracket to knuckle to 100 foot-pounds. Once you've torqued all your hardware, you want to go ahead and hop into the vehicle, pump up the brakes. The purpose of that is that you're going to go ahead and push this piston in, compressing these pads, and you want to go ahead and do so, otherwise you're going to end up with a mushy pedal, and you don't want that to happen. Then you want to go ahead and repeat this process for the passenger side. Go ahead and grab that wheel, line it up, set that in place. We're going to start all of our lug nuts by hand, and once they're all started, we're going to go ahead and snug them down. In our case, we are missing one lug nut Obviously, you probably have all of yours. Install them all. And we're going to snug them down gently in a crisscross pattern. Now we're going to torque down our lug nuts to 103 foot-pounds. You want to do this in a crisscross pattern. In our particular case, we're missing a lug nut here, but you would go ahead and torque that down. Take your center cap, take the leg here, and you want to line that up with the spot right here in the wheel. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.